Let's speak now to Victor Gao from the Centre for China and Globalization in Beijing, joins us from Shenzhen. Thank you for coming on the programme.
Thank you very much for having me.
How significant do you think the UK is in Chinese eyes? How important is any kind of relationship?
First of all, Prime Minister Starmer's visit to China will be a landmark visit, and hopefully it will be a turning point in China-British relations. Purely from the Chinese perspective, Britain is a great country, is a very important country. And between China and Britain, I truly believe there are no geopolitical rivalries or differences between the two of us. Therefore, I hope China and Britain will look at each other as completely equal with each other, and we respect each other, and we promote our bilateral cooperation. And I hope Britain will develop a certain level of judgment to look at China by itself rather than being dictated by some other countries, for example. In this way, Britain should not view China as a rival or a competitor or an enemy. China should also be viewed as a very important country to be fully engaged with Britain in all respects.
Does the balance between the UK and China now mean that, in your eyes, the UK needs China more than China needs the UK?
Well, I want to say both China and UK can need each other for mutual benefit. Whether China needs Britain more or less, or more than Britain needs China, that's purely a very artificial issue to be talked about. I think my view is that China and Britain need to respect each other, deal with each other completely as an equal, and explore all the possibilities to make sure that our extended cooperation will be to the benefit of the British people as well as to the Chinese people. Some people say, well, the golden era is gone. It will never come back. Let me make one point. If the golden era between China and Britain will never come back, let's hope the platinum era will come back between China and...
OK, I'm just going to jump in there, because we have just been seeing on the screen for the last minute or so the Prime Minister Keir Starmer touching down there in Beijing. We don't believe these pictures are live. We're just trying to establish whether they are live or whether they are just the most recent pictures in the last few minutes or so. So the plane journey has come to an end. And just one bit of colour detail from our political editor, Chris Mason, who was on board that flight there with the Prime Minister. And Chris Mason saying, as we approach Beijing, a familiar voice comes over the plane tannoy from the cockpit. The Prime Minister has commandeered the kit to talk to passengers, and he thanked the corporate and cultural delegation who are accompanying him for coming along. And he ended with a joke that we should sit back and relax, and he would be landing the plane in Beijing. So that's just a little bit of colour there for what was actually taking place on the plane just before landing. And there is the Prime Minister being greeted at the red carpet there in Beijing. Now, the Thursday is the big day for the official visit, because that's the time he has that meeting with personal chemistry and personal relationship will be put to the test. But before that, still plenty ongoing on this trip, as I said, with all those people travelling with the Prime Minister, those cultural and business leaders there will be trying to forge business links. There will be plenty of talks about trade, tariffs, about a new potential trading and economic world order, given the events with the US and the US imposing tariffs and the destabilisation of international trade that has ensued from that. So you can clearly see those are the latest pictures of the Prime Minister there heading into the car and being whisked away. We'll keep track of the Prime Minister throughout this visit. Victor Gao, thank you very much for just bearing with us as we just took those pictures. As I said, I don't think they were live, but they were certainly very recent anyway. The trip is now officially underway then. What would you like to see from a practical point of view? We talked about things like the relationship of equals and diplomatic channels being kept open. But what, in practical terms, would you like to see from a Chinese point of view when this trip wraps up?
Yeah, based on my understanding of the situation in Britain, I think Britain needs to beef up its power generation, and Britain needs to attract more foreign direct investment into Britain to create more jobs. Now, in all these respects, I think China can really help. I personally hope China and Britain can cooperate in terms of building electric vehicles and turn Britain into another major dynamic center for automobile industry after many decades. And I think between China and Britain, there should be no lack of wisdom and creativity between the two of us, while respecting each other as completely sovereign countries and respecting each other's internal affairs. China and Britain should expect to break new ground in this new era.
Okay, Victor Gao, thank you very much for coming on the programme. Thank you.